Hey guys, this is Eggy with the Math Egghead program. I am doing another video, a simpler video regarding the absolute value and the inequality symbol. This is just going to be a short video kind of giving you a summary of what we talked about before in case you don't have enough time to watch my longer videos. So I would like for you guys to pause and record the number line so that you guys can see exactly how we would start off when we're looking at a number line. As you can see in this particular number line, we're shown integers, positive and negative. Now, when you go to the left, you see that the negative numbers are towards the left. And remember, 0 is always our starting point. So when you're looking at the left of 0, that's where our negative numbers would be, our negative integers. And when you're going to the left of the number line, on the number line, you will see that the numbers get smaller. Now, if you look on the right side of the 0, you see that the numbers are positive integers, and the numbers tend to get bigger as you go to the right side of the number line. So keep that in mind and let's get started. All right, guys. So let's start off with something simple. Let's say we wanted you to go ahead and mark -3 on this number line. Also, I want you to mark number 5 and -1. How would you mark that? Well, we know that -3 is right here. 5 being a positive number is on the right side, and -1 is on the left side. Now, let's say we wanted to, let's get rid of this. Excuse me. Okay. So let's say we wanted to now deal with inequality. So do you guys remember inequalities? They kind of look like the Pac-Man. Pac-Man always wants to eat the bigger number. So we always read these kind of problems from left to right. So if your professor showed you this, how would you read that? 7 is greater than 1. What if you saw something like this? What would that symbol be? Is -3 bigger than 2 or smaller than 2? Well, we see that -3 is here and 2 is here. And remember, the numbers tend to get bigger here and smaller as you go down to the left side. So here we would put that 3 is smaller because remember, in the inequality symbol, the interval always wants to face the bigger number, the open interval. So we would read this as -3 is smaller or less than 2. Remember, there's many different ways you can read that as long as you're specifying that you're stating that whether this number is bigger or smaller. You can say less than, greater than, smaller, bigger. There's plenty of ways to say that. As long as you're reading it correctly from the left to the right, you should be okay. All right. So going back to this, excuse me. So let's say your teacher wanted you to show them. First, he gives you two numbers, -7 and let's say 6. How, first of all, which number is bigger? Well, we could do this 2 ways. We know that on the number line, the -7 is here and 6 is here. So we know that the number towards the right of the 0 is bigger and positive, and the negative number tends to be smaller and on the left side of the 0. So we know that Pac-Man is not going to want to eat the smaller number, and negative numbers are always smaller than a positive number, okay? So we know that negative 7 would be less than 6. So this is how you would draw it on the number line, and this is how you would read it. Negative 7 is less than or smaller than 6. All right, guys, let's see something else. And tell me if you guys like this video better. I was working with paper and pen, but I saw that the video was actually very small for viewing. So I hope that this notepad and just being digital is more easy on the eyes, I should say. Not more easy, but just easier on the eyes. All right, guys. So let's deal with some other inequalities. What if your professor gave you -2 and 1? Well, we know -2 is here, 1 is here. Numbers are smaller going this way, numbers are bigger going this way. So we know that Pac-Man's going to eat the open interval, is going to eat the bigger number. So -2 is less than or smaller than 1. Okay, so let's try absolute value really quickly as well. Quick summary. I can get rid of this as well. So if you guys happen to see my other video, that is the introduction to integers, it goes into depth about the absolute value, the inequality symbol, and the introduction to integers. But I thought that this would be just a better way to view things because the screen is bigger, it's brighter, and you guys can see what I'm actually writing here. So let's go with absolute value. So we know that the absolute value has this symbol. It's always this symbol. So if I put the absolute value of 1 is 1. Remember, absolute values are always positive. Always, 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 right? So there is one exception, but we'll go over that. So let's say your professor goes and gives you, what is the absolute value of -7? Well, we know it's 7. What about the absolute value of -99? Well, we know it's 99. What about the absolute value of -3? Well, we know that it's 3. But there is an exception to this. What if your professor said, what is the absolute value of -4? But there is an there is a negative symbol outside of your absolute value. Now, let's start first with just this part, right? What's the absolute value of -4? Well, we know the absolute value of -4 is 4, but still we have to take care of this symbol. So let's say -4 is 4, but we still have this. So we bring down the negative and the answer would be -4. Also, you can think of it as negative times negative is always a positive. I'm not sure if some of you guys have gone through multiplication of the integers. Just really quickly, we can even go through that, and I can show you how that would look. But remember, that's always the exception there. If you have a negative outside of the absolute value, remember that negative sign does not disappear. You have to take that into consideration when you're dealing with the absolute value. So let's say we got, let me show you the rules really quick for that. So let's say you have a negative times a negative, that's positive. Positive times positive equals positive. Negative times positive is negative. Positive times negative equals negative. When you're multiplying symbols that are different, you always get negative. When you're multiplying alike signs, you get positive. Pause the video if you'd like and just write this down really quick. That will also be very helpful. Again, I'm not sure how far you guys have gone in school with the material, but this is just always very helpful when you're dealing with multiplication and division with integers, okay? So let's get rid of this real quick. And let's do a couple of more problems, practice problems for inequalities and absolute values. Okay, guys? So if your professor gave you this number, what's the inequality symbol? What would be facing where? Where would the open interval be? So we know that negative is always smaller than a positive number. And in this case, 100 is bigger than 99. So remember, we always read the problem from left to right. So we know 100 is greater than negative 99. What if I put negative 99 and 100? Well, the symbol would just flip, but you would read it differently. Negative 99 is less than 100, or negative 99 is smaller than 100. What about if I said, what is this? How would the symbol, or where would the open interval face? Well, we know again, positive and a negative. The positive is always bigger, so it'll be 1 is greater than negative 2. What if I said negative 2 and negative 4? Well, now we have two negatives, so that rule doesn't really help. So how would we know? Well, think about the number line, right? I'm just going to draw that really quick. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we know the numbers that are going further and further to the left of the number line get smaller, right? And they're negative. So we know that negative 4 is smaller or further from the 0 than negative 2 is. So negative 2 is actually bigger. So Pac-Man would eat negative 2 first. So it would be negative 2 is greater than negative 4, or negative 2 is bigger than negative 4. What if I said negative 6 and negative 7? Well, again, we would continue the number line. I'm sorry if this is a little sloppy. 5, 6, 7, 8, negative, negative, negative. So we know that negative 6 is here and negative 7 is here. Which is closer to 0? Well, we know it's negative 6. So that means that negative 6 would be a bigger number. So negative 6 is greater than negative 7. All right, and then quickly, let's go through the absolute values here. And don't forget, there's always an exception there. So I hope you guys took a note of that. Let me just get rid of all this. Okay. Now, with absolute values, let's say, for example, your professor said, what's the absolute value of negative 7? Well, we know it's 7. What's the absolute value of 3? Well, we know it's 3. What about negative 100? Well, we know it's 100. But here goes the exceptions, right? So here, what if we had negative 5? The absolute value of negative 5, and then we have a negative outside. Well, we know this right here is 5, and then you bring down the symbol, so it's negative 5. What if your professor said, what's the absolute value of negative, let's say 12? What would this be? Well, we still know that this is 12, and this symbol still is brought down, so it's still negative 12. All right, guys, I hope this was really helpful for you. Please check out my other videos if you do have a topic you would like for me to go over, or if you have any questions or particular math problems that you would like for me to go over and see on a video. Feel free to always leave a comment, subscribe, like. I have a Patreon page that goes with other topics that are in more depth. And again, you can always make a request, and see you guys in the next video.